When I took Star Trek for granted. Well, yeah. Today on Trekland Tuesdays Live, number 370, with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 for some sanity, clarity, and the big picture in Star Trek. And yes, we're also the home of the Trekland Treks when you're coming to LA, or maybe you should come with this in mind for 1 or even 2 days, and we will set you up. Get in touch with me. We will concierge it. Well, I'll concierge it. We'll have it all fixed up ahead of time. 4 locations from real-world Star Trek from the original series through Picard. Your choice. We will pre-plan it. No headaches. It's all on me. You have the time of your life with your own custom away mission. Get in touch with me. And we're out of fire season now, so it's awesome. I just want to say I recently had the honor and privilege to join none other than Armin Shimmerman and Kitty Swink and John Billingsley and Bonnie Gordon. Yes, I know. Can you tell that it was probably benefiting the pancreatic cancer, the PanCan Trek team? It was. It was nominally, though, the 10th anniversary of The Fleet, which is another fan organization that uses ship names for local chapters, founded 10 years ago. This was the 10th anniversary, started as a single club who wanted to have fandom fun, wanted to do charity work, and have their emphasis be cosplay and uniforms and all of that. And it's since expanded to 14, 15 chapters in several states out of Southern California, starting with the USS Artesia. So I want to thank them for having us come over. It was they had some parody stuff, some very nice banquet. The DJ and a dance toward the end of it had Armin and Kitty and John and Bonnie and myself as guests, and it was a wonderful evening. It was very sweet, very well planned. I love fandom, but there are times in life when I have sat through some excruciatingly long fan events, even for all the right reasons. This was not that. This was a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of people I had not yet who were right here in the region, and a lot of folks I barely knew, got to know them a lot better. But one of the things they asked me to talk about, just very brief little comments, not background, not comment, not Trek history, as you would think about it, but asked me to talk about fan optimism. And I was like, well, that's not really my wheelhouse. And they were like, well, we can change. I was like, nope. Challenge is given. Because to me, it's like fan optimism. And this is the thing, kiddos, when you get out of your comfort zone, or even if it's not really a comfort zone, just look at something from a different direction. This is what I urge everybody in this era of new Treks and expanding Treks and so many generations of fans. And, I don't know, apply it to the real world when we're in the time of, I don't know, here in the States on election season. Get out of not just your comfort zone, but get out of your world zone. I mean, get out of your bubble. And I know a lot of people notoriously never leave their bubble. So I guess this is coming on false ears. But even on the most optimistic of Star Trek terms we're talking here, I'm talking about a topic. Because talking about optimism made me realize something that I remembered to realize, well, nearly 10 years ago now, when Leonard Nimoy passed. And it made me not only pull up and look at myself, my attitude, my worldview, but it pissed myself off a little bit at myself. And a mini version of that happened for this evening. This was a week ago Saturday at Cerritos, the Cerritos Library. Yes, that's Cerritos. One thing about the fleet is their ships can't be named for canon ships. So there are no Enterprises or Discoveries or Defiance or Voyagers or whatevers. And no Cerritoses either, which is interesting. But no, they asked me to talk about fan optimism as a positive community thought process. And I made it personal. I talked about what I talked about when Leonard died in the pages of the, soon-to-be-gone Star Trek magazine. But I talked about how I should be ashamed of myself. I talked about how I took Star Trek for granted because I intellectually enjoyed it. I mean, I just enjoyed the show, right? I didn't analyze it when you're a kid. And the first year or 2 or 3, you start digging deeper, reading deeper, and all the material at the time. This was the heyday kids. So I had Star Trek Lives to look at analysis, and we had the making of Star Trek and all of that. And it was like, oh, yes, people love the optimism of the show, of course, and the diversity. And all up and down the line, the futuristic optimism. The fact that if Gene said, if we're gonna live long enough, if we're gonna be able to tell cool stories about future tech and meeting aliens and tell some morality tales, that means we have to live long enough to get there. We have to live long enough to invent the technology. That means we have to live long enough, which means we don't kill ourselves, we don't blow our planet up, we don't kill it, we don't poison it, we don't nuke ourselves. And on down the line, it means we have to grow up and mature, which means we somehow get over all of our fallibilities now. And as he would later famously say, you know, mature as a species. The human adventure is just beginning. And I would, yeah, that makes sense. And the beauty is I have to realize over the years that I didn't take Star Trek the way so many other people did. So many people, Star Trek was a lifeline. So many people, Star Trek was a shining light in the middle of whether it was the Vietnam War or the nuke scare, right? The no nukes movement, or the ecological movement, or civil rights, women's rights, you know, gender, LGBTQ rights now, whatever the issue was across the years, Star Trek was a shining light to a lot of people. No, we will make it. We just have to work at it. That's the arc of history. And then to a lot of people on an even more personal level, Star Trek was there. You know, Jimmy Doohan talks about the young woman that was near suicide and wrote him. And he talked her through it and told her what he wanted to do. And she came back and they met years later. I mean, that's the thing. But there's hundreds and thousands of that, whether it was suicide or not, or just in a shitty living situation. Whatever was going wrong with somebody, medical problems, emotional problems, relationship problems, family problems, whatever it was. Star Trek was people in comas and with horrendous medical situations, and somehow these miracle stories of they watch Star Trek in the hospital, and it somehow something speaks to that mind and helps them heal in ways that medical science isn't going to have an answer for yet. Whatever it's been, on whatever level, Star Trek has meant so much to so many people over the years. Or it's sentimental. It now reminds them of their dad or their mom or their grandma or their Uncle Fred or their Aunt Louise, whoever it was that they watched with when they were a kid. And now it's just a pleasant memory. But not to downgrade pleasant memories. Sometimes a pleasant memory, a warm memory is what can get us through one of those issues. Whatever it is, I intellectualize even the emotion of Star Trek. And being asked to talk about it made all the difference. Got it out of here and out of here. And when you say the words, even though you know, we all know Star Trek is so optimistic and influential and looking forward and diverse and blah, blah, blah. When you say them out loud, it gives them power. It's kind of amazing. It sounds like such a simple concept. And then I just found myself kind of getting refreshed that night. And I talked as a sidebar later about fan and charity work, and which the gist of was, and these were like little 2, 3, 4 minute moments. But the gist of that was, we just talked about the inherent optimism of Star Trek. Here's a room full of ship chapters all working on different charities in their locales, nationally maybe. Here's this banquet overall, this 10th anniversary to the fleet banquet overall had a huge charity auction, silent auction. Everything extra was going into the PanCan team, for which John and Armin and Kitty were all very grateful, because you all know that's the big project now. And I looked at everybody and I said, well, that positivism, the DNA of fandom, and then on steroids for Star Trek has always been, but the earliest fan cons, whether it was to distinguish them from pro-cons or it was to, in the old days, just legitimize yourself coming out of the closet. No, I'm part of the real community too. That's a moot point these days, the geeks one. But I'm just saying, back in the early days, if you were able to say, we're having this convention and you're fighting to get attention from your local media and press and anybody to pay attention. But when you could say, nope, we're supporting Infant Crisis Services of Oklahoma City. When you could do that, you instantly had cred. Now, whether you really needed it or not, I think you did back in those days, back in the OG days, in the 80s and the 90s. But it's always been there. And I'm not saying that's the only fans just reached out. And another thing was it set them aside from the for-profit conventions, right? Whether they were formally nonprofit organized or they were just fan groups, and eventually got to be a 501c3. Wherever it was in that spectrum, it was just inherent. And what I told the group that night was, look, this has always been the history. I said, so be proud of that. It's been a part of Star Trek's DNA. The DNA of Star Trek itself can't help but transcend itself through fandom works and activities. So yeah, one of the three pillars of the fleet and so many other fan groups is doing good works in the local community, picking a charity to work for it, or picking several through the year and working for it. And I just remember thinking of this in the fly on the run, to say I could stand here and tell you all to keep working in your good works, but I don't need to. It's in your DNA. You're going to do it whether I say to or anyone else says to or not, urges you on. You're going to go out there and do it. You're going to find whatever it is you want to work for, to contribute to, and you're going to do it. I can say it, but you don't need me because it's baked in the cake. And I'm just going to say this. This is just a simple notion today, as we have so much else going on in the world. A little bit of a lag still for Star Trek. Convention news coming out of both Star Trek Chicago, a little bit, and also Star Trek, or Salt Lake Fan X, the old Comic-Con in Salt Lake, that I have had the pleasure to attend many times over the last 10, 15 years. Not this year. We were here working, but lots of fan, events happening, good stuff happening, good cheer, good fellowship happening among fans, Star Trek and broad-based both. So that's happening. We're all looking forward to the start of Lower Decks in about 3 weeks. The world is moving on, and so it's a perfect time to kind of sit and take a notion. So yes, I applaud the fleet for 10 years. That's amazing. Thanks to them for having me come out and join the group. It was a swell evening. Met a lot of folks. Got to catch up with others. But it also made me just twist my normal way enough to remember sometimes the simplest things take on a whole new power and can be just as reaffecting as I had 2 or 3 people come up later and say they really enjoyed what I said. I didn't sit down for a State of the Union or an inaugural address or retirement or welcome. I wasn't trying to be. I just was trying to think of something a little different, as usual, not the same old. And sometimes you don't need a PhD to do that. Sometimes you can find the most powerful words just by shifting your approach, your attitude, and even digging back into what you know to come at it just a little bit differently. I was very, very pleased. I was very pleased with what I pulled off. I didn't know if it would work. Apparently it did. Even everybody at our table, Kitty and everybody was looking at me like, wow, do you do that often? I'm not a motivational speaker, spiritual speaker, but talking about Star Trek helps. I'll just say that. Talking about Star Trek and its fandom and that mutual effect they've had on each other. If you just open your eyes and wake up and try to see what's going on, and then maybe even have a little bit of span of time to look at, it's amazing what you come up with. So thank you. Thank you, the fleet, for having me. And I'm glad everyone enjoyed themselves all night long. And I'm glad maybe that resonated with somebody. Maybe it resonated with you too. In a very simple but powerful way. It's always good to get what we know to be true and get it out in the open. And not just take it as well, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, gang, I would be amiss if I didn't mention also our open house. Every anniversary, every fall, I commemorate another year of Portal 47 by opening Portal 47 to the public. We have a big free night it's an open house virtually, which means door prizes, which means samples of our wares, which means good conversation and some surprises and big names. And yes, every year for the open house, I try to have a really special guest that's in the vein of Portal 47, which is all about the backstage folks. So no actors. And this year I am thrilled for the 9th anniversary. Portal 47 is 9 years old. We're already going on 10, but 9th anniversary. This is Wednesday, October 9th. So just a couple of weeks. It'll be 6 p.m. Pacific, so that's 10 Eastern. We start off with an hour of a sample of the Ask Dr. Trek Roundtable, which basically for newbies will just be an open mic. Talk about what you want to talk about related to Trek. You can ask me anything about Trek history or anything, or we can talk Trek news, headlines, trends, whatever you want to do for the first hour, just like an Ask Dr. Trek Roundtable when you see me mention that, the European and the American. And then at 7, it's guest time with the Hagemans. Yes, Dad and Kevin, the showrunners, creators of Prodigy. And I know you've seen them at other places, but this will be a Trekland version. This will be the Dr. Trek treatment of the Hagemans. You don't want to miss this. There'll be door prizes for those who register and the ability to have some pre-recorded questions or pre-sent questions for the Hagemans too. All you got to do is go to LarryNemecek.com, follow the things, or go to portal47.net, follow the links. Just register with your email. No big deal. That way I have a head count and you are in for we've got Blu-rays. We've got good Trek coffee table books here. I've been collecting extras over the year. So we'll have several things to give away through the night, before and after the Hagemans. Okay, you don't want to miss it. 6 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. You're welcome to stay up late and join us from Europe, and some folks have in the past. That is all on Wednesday, October 9th. So let me do right now. Thank all of our Patreon folk, right? TTL Club. Hey, that's Chuck A., James Kerwin, Diana Hopkins, Jesse of Crusher Convo, Lawrence Todd, Halbert Gundjonson, Galinda Bruton, Andrew Jasimski, Josh Patton, Pranakash Productions, Chris Jiggins, Keith Rombach, and Comedy Forecast. And then the live wires, Rob McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Alan Hoensi, Dave Gregory, Greg Wickstrom, and Casey Shafsky. And of course, I want to thank our Patreons who are here all year long, helping us out a little bit at a time every month. You can too. $5-10 a month at patreon.com/TreklandLive. I appreciate it so much. We're at the end of the month, but you can still join today and get in. They do it at the end of the month is when they do it. And of course, real fast, the Trek Files. There's a new one up today. We've got Aaron Harvey, my good friend, the graphic artist who's all over the place, and the co-author of the animated series, been kind of the spokesperson, cheerleader for the animated series, all things, and getting it the respect that it still needs and accords. We talk about the 50th anniversary of the second season of the animated series and the 50th anniversary just recently of the Pirates of Orion, and the impact that little animated show has had on succeeding generations of Trek. Yes, as an animated show. It's more than yesteryear. The Trek Files, wherever fine podcasts are caught, and now findable at thetrekfiles.com, which takes you to direct link to our page on Memory Alpha, which now is an archive of all the past shows and everything all in once to look at every new episode as well. The documents of the week and the audio player and the hot links back into. Of course, we still have our Facebook. We still have all the places you'd normally get the pod by itself. Alrighty? And I'm just going to go ahead and say right now, boom, here's where I am otherwise. I'm still on Twitter, Larry Nemecek. You don't give up on 13,000 people that easy. Or Larry's Trekland on Facebook, Instagram. If you are new to any of these, please subscribe, but especially here on YouTube. Alrighty? And it's portal47.net. If you want to read about Portal 47 before we have open house night on October 9th, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. 7 p.m. then with the great Hageman brothers. If you're watching this later on, we usually have a great half hour or so. Hey, YouTubers, join us live when you can on Tuesdays at 1-ish Pacific, 4-ish Eastern, 9-ish UK time, and 10-ish Central Europe. But for right now, I'm just going to say, check us out everywhere. Don't forget the upcoming campaign events here if you're in the States and you are so inclined. Otherwise, love to see you around Trekland, all our events, podcasts, everything at LarryNemecek.com. Just to say, though, overall, please, everybody, stay healthy, do all the things, stay woke, check the sources. Don't forget our folks hurting from Hurricane Helene. Overall, though, try to truck well, everybody.